This episode is sponsored by Phrase Flowers, a Western New York family-run flower farm and floral preservationist. They now offer unique pressed flowers in the shape of buffaloes in prints in different sizes in handmade wooden frames. Be on the lookout for bills, sabers, and bandits colored buffaloes coming soon.
You can get a hold of them on their website at phraseflowers.com. That's Frase flowers.com. Or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Bring more joy and color into your life at Phrase Flowers. What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil, episode 367. Phil, it's good to see you back. Last episode, we had to finish without you. Internet issues were a monster last week. Editing was a beast, but we got through it. Congratulations to all the award winners. But Phil, it is good to have you back full time, because that last 15 minutes, it was just me talking nonstop, and I forgot how much I hate going solo.
I mean, I don't want to jinx it, so we'll see. We'll see if I'm back the whole time. I should be, in theory, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But it is good to be back, and these breaks in between episodes have felt like eternity.
Yes.
It's one of those things where, you know how like when you don't work out for a couple weeks and then you try to go back to working out and you hate it and you still have to start from like day one, essentially. That's what these breaks feel like whenever we are like gearing up towards an episode again. I mean, like, it feels like I haven't done an episode in about 6 years, and it's hard to get mentally pumped for it. But now we're here, and we're in it, and we are ready to kick off some more off-season content.
So we started this last year, and we're bringing it back this year because we both really liked it, kind of talking about other teams. We don't really have a ton of time in season, and that's kind of what the off season is about, kind of talking and bringing up topics that we want to talk about during the regular season, but there's just so much to get through, so we push it to the off season. So we're going to be talking about league report cards once again. See who passed, see who failed. Once again this year for the 14 teams, not 15. Last year was 15, and we gave a grade to Panther City, and they hated it so much they left the entire league. But for the next 5 weeks leading up, each show will have 3 rounding out to the Buffalo Bandits will be the first one. We'll be working in reverse order, so if you came in 14th, 13th, or 12th, I'll give you a second. Okay, everybody check their standings. We will talk about you on today's show. But Phil, it's 9 million degrees out. It's just going to keep getting hotter. I haven't figured out my room situation yet. It's 9 million degrees, so if you see beads of sweat coming off my bald head, that is why. But what did you do in your... We'll start this off. We'll try to remember to do this each show in our off season. What did you do in your 7 days since we last recorded?
I think the big thing would have been Zor Valley. Yesterday, we went to Zor Valley, and if you haven't been there, it's pretty great. There's 2 spots you can go to. One leads like right to the water. The other one is a smallish hike, and then you go to the water. There's very few rules in a weird way. Even when we were there, both times we've gone, there's been a forest ranger in the area, and he just watches you and he's like, hey, there you are, have fun. But you get to go in the water. There's a ton of rushing water, a ton of pools. It can get scary. We went to a spot where it was rushing way too much. I don't know why we decided to try to cross the mini river. It was a mistake. It was very powerful, and you kind of remember how strong water can be.
You didn't ever scout. That was the problem.
No, yeah.
I had me get washed away first.
We were trying to get I had the backpack of stuff. We were trying to get it to the other side of the water, and so I had the backpack with me. I had, I think, my shirt in my hand, and I was trying to walk across water, and there was a good point where it just picked me up and just shoved me downstream, and it wasn't fun, but the rest of it was great. A ton of hiking, ton of just in the water, splashing around, good times, and there was I think the whole time we were there, we saw maybe 6 other people total. And for the most part, when we were just kind of hanging out in the water, sitting and chilling, it was just us, me and my wife that went. So that was pretty great. Really good time to just enjoy nature, be out there, and no one around, which was pretty cool.
My wife's birthday was last week. Wished her happy birthday on the show. She obviously didn't listen because she didn't thank me. But because it was in the middle of the week, we pushed. We've been watching the middle, and we've been watching it for like the last year. It's like the nighttime show on TV now that we just turn on to fall asleep to. But they always talk about floating it, so we floated her birthday to the weekend, and we went to a smash room. I don't know if anybody's ever been to a smash room. It's kind of like an enclosed area where you just break a bunch of stuff with bats. And I told her going in, I was like, just have an open mind, have no fear. And by the end of it, she was at the table just smashing the glasses. I'm very proud of her. And then the following day, we went to, I'm not going to give the company because I'm not going to give a free plug. But we went to an escape room that wasn't supposed to be an escape room, but it was too much like an escape room. They advertised it poorly. It was supposed to be more like, at least how they advertised it, was supposed to be more puzzles and like, it was a story that if you did a certain thing, the story would change. So not everybody was going to be doing it. It wasn't anything like that. So I felt a little bad, but then we got dinner afterwards, and everything was made whole again. But yeah, Smash Room, definitely would recommend anywhere that has Smash Rooms. There's only 2 in the area, and there's only 3 pretty much within driving distance. We went to the one up in Canada. Highly recommended. It was a very good time. 30 minutes max, though. Don't go for the hour unless you have a big group. 2 people, 30-minute max is perfectly fine. And because it's real glass and stuff like that, you got to wear like a hoodie, long sleeves. They give you goggles and long pants. You get real warm. So what I'm feeling now is what I felt there. But it was a great time. I highly recommend anybody that got anger management issues or just want to let off some steam, go to a Smash Room. Very fun.
Any of these teams that finished at the bottom of the standings might need to go in there and maybe pay a little extra to get some Bandits glasses in there and some Bandits players' faces. Really let out their anger at the top of the team. I also don't know if we shouted out Father's Day. That was the other thing this past weekend. I don't think we did either. So happy belated Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I know there's a lot of Bandits players that are fathers themselves, more and more coming. And I mean, there were plenty throughout the season that missed games against the Bandits to become fathers. So happy Father's Day to everybody out there who is a father.
Good call. Happy belated Father's Day. And that kind of ties into it's a subject we're not going to hammer home, but I think it's a subject we want to talk about really quick because we did make a post about it. Our sponsor, Phrase Flowers, made a post about it. They started a GoFundMe. One of our good friends, Joel, who does listen to the show, does follow the show, he was recently diagnosed with gastrointestinal cancer. Now, he is a paramedic in Buffalo. His wife is the EMT in Buffalo, so both of them are first responders. He's going to be going through surgery in July to get the tumor removed and kind of possibly have to go through chemotherapy. There is a GoFundMe, not asking anybody to donate, but it's kind of also important to raise awareness that, hey, even though people are out there putting their lives on the line on as first responders, they have real lives too that they do have to go home to, and that's what we're seeing firsthand with our good friend Joel. So again, there's a GoFundMe out there. We put it out there. It's on Facebook. If you follow Phrase Flowers, they have it as well, but just wanted to make note of that. And like I always say, there's never a good transition, but we'll move on to report cards. The Las Vegas Desert Dogs, me and my one other friend, if they keep the same schedule and Buffalo is headed out to Vegas, and this might be the first time you're hearing this because this might be the first time I've talked to you. Okay, he's shaking his head no for those not watching on YouTube. We're going to be making a trip out to Las Vegas for the Bandits game and some fun out there as well. But Las Vegas Desert Dogs, they finished 14th, 4-14. They 189 goals scored, which it might seem like a lot, but when you break it down, 10.5, tied for 12th, and then they gave up 256 goals, which does seem like a lot because it is. 14.22 goals a game. That was dead last in the NLL. Once again, Desert Dogs, bottom of the barrel this season, and they are the first ones that we're going to be talking about for our report cards.
Yeah, this team is struggling. There is no other way to really talk about them. They are not doing a good job of kind of turning any page over. I mean, we saw a team like Albany finish last place and then had that quick switch. Yes, it was too much. We'll talk about them later, but you could see that they went from the bottom, did what they needed to kind of bottom out, build their team, and come back. Vegas just continues to kind of stay at the bottom. To me, their team just isn't built to do much. They have a few select players that are really, really solid and some players that should be good for their future. But for the most part, they just don't have enough depth, enough star talent on this team to really push themselves out of the basement. And we saw it again this season. Like, they didn't do enough in the offseason to make any changes that much. And as I'm sure you'll get into a moment, they don't have a ton of options to get themselves out of the basement for the offseason. So this team's, honestly, it's mildly depressing to talk about. Their offense is okay, but still missing just too much depth. Their defense just really isn't there, and their goaltending isn't really there. Again, yes, they have pieces, but as a whole team, they're missing way too much, and that's why they are where they are.
Yeah, and I'll sum up what you mean by that, what you're hitting at. The draft picks that they have aren't ideal. And this is kind of like last year where it was Philly that came in bottom last of the barrel, and they didn't have their own first-round pick. That's the same with Vegas here. They still don't have their first overall pick. As everybody knows, that's in Toronto because of the Rob Hellier deal back in 2022. Vancouver owns Las Vegas' second-round pick from the Kyle Killen deal last offseason. But I will hand it to Vegas. They do have the fourth overall pick from their deal last offseason, where that they acquired Justin Getty from Albany along with Albany's first-round pick this year, which ended up being the fourth overall pick. So while they do not have a number one overall pick for finishing last, they are in fourth. They will also have the 17th overall pick in the first round due to the compensatory picks. That is per swarmitup.com. They also own Colorado's second-round pick from the Garrett McIntosh deal back in 2023. So they do have some pieces moving forward, but for a team, this team is a prime example of how an expansion team can go wrong. And they kind of, in my opinion, and don't hear what I'm not saying, I'm not taking shots at Sean Williams. I'm taking shots at Sean Williams, the GM. I don't like the direction they're headed in, and I do not like the direction they were headed in. They seem like they're a ship that's just lost aground and doesn't have a right direction to go. They make a trade and bring in Holden Cattoni. That's a 30-year-old forward, and I know you got to have some veteran pieces here, but there's not really anything in the cupboards. Yes, and we'll go over some of the young players right now. Jackson Webster, third-round pick a couple years ago, rookie season last year. I thought he played decent. I do think he has a decent future as a depth forward. They have Jonathan Donville. They have Jack Hanna. So they do have some nice pieces. Even Adam Patra, who came on working on the back end, coming out the front door now. But I think they have nice pieces at the forward group. But I like the direction they're sort of headed in, but they're not doing enough. And what I mean by that is they don't have. Are you going in for a full rebuild? Or are you going for the wins right now? It seems like they don't have a clear direction on where they want to go. And as I'm stuttering through all this, it's kind of how I feel like Vegas has been doing right now is they don't really know who they are or what they want to be. Like they don't want to bottom out, even though they are bottoming out by adding a guy like Holden Cattoni, which I get the deal. It makes sense, but it's just, it's kind of confusing and I don't know exactly where they're going to end up going.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, Albany did what they needed to do and just completely tanked, and they knew it, and everybody else knew it, and then their rebuild happened. Like, this team seems to be stuck in trying to go for it mode and not just give up, while at the same time not being good enough to get out of the basement. So, like you said, it seems like they're kind of just caught in the middle of half going for it, half trying to get wins and move this team forward, but not doing nearly enough to get out of the basement where you should just kind of take that year or two, bottom out, rebuild properly, and just kind of tear it all down and start over. But they don't seem to want to do that, and because of that, they're kind of stuck in this purgatory of not good enough to escape the basement and not doing enough to leave it.
Yeah, and because of the CBA, this offseason's a little weird and wonky. I've been saying it for the last, I mean, I haven't fully said it in months now, but I said it when Buffalo was facing Las Vegas or when we were doing some of the outlooks and the recaps of the weeks that I thought Sean Williams either had to stay behind the bench or stay in the front office. I did not like him in both roles because I thought not saying he's overwhelmed, but I just do not think that the current formula is working going into their fourth season. It's just something has to give. I don't know if there's going to be changes because if typically in other sports, if changes are going to be made, it's happening right after the season ends. And we're already midway through June looking towards July and nothing has changed, but nothing has changed across the entire league. So I'm going on the assumption they're going to bring back the same front office and the same coaching staff from prior years. Again, that might change due to the CBA. We'll come to find out. But it's going to be very interesting to see moving forward what this team looks like. And I do like some of the pieces on offense. I like Patra. I like Donville. I like Hannah. I like Webster coming on. But they also haven't hit on some of their other picks as well. You saw Dylan Watson go out, and he's in San Diego. He was the second overall pick in their first draft. On the back end, and goaltending, I think, are their weakest spots. And that's hard to say when the team is 4-14. Where's your weak spot? But it's very clear. On their back end, I mean, Connor Kirst, he's a household name at this point. He's a stud back there. But beyond that, I mean, Drew Belgrave's a good piece. You have Brandon Goodwin who comes over in the expansion draft, or dispersal draft, I should say. He had a decent season. Jake Sanders looks like he's going to be a good piece. Drew Belgrave comes over in a trade that sent Dylan Watson out to San Diego, like I just mentioned. But they don't have star players on the back end. And then when you don't have star players on the back end, your netminders who are getting exposed get even more exposed in Landon Kells and Justin Getty. They just don't have a right formula coming out the back door in between the pipes that they've been able to fix yet.
Yeah, I love Kierce. Like you said, Goodwin, he's great, but the problem with him, again, it depends on where this team's going. He's 33 years old in UFA, so despite how good he is that a player that A, might not come back, or B, just is that someone they can really build around at his age? Not that 33 is horrible by any means, but again, it's an older, aging veteran that, like, do you really want to build around that style player? Kierce, like you said, household name, going to be great for a long, long time. But for the most part, they just don't have enough on the back end. They don't have the cause turnovers. They don't have that just staple, solid defense. And like you said, it could be part of the system not working with the players they have, but they just don't seem to have enough on the back to really make that difference, make that impact to stop other teams. And like you said, they were worse in the league with goals against, and their goalies also struggled because of the defense in front of them. Yes, I don't necessarily know if Kells or Getty are, going to be the solution, but it's hard to know that when you don't have a strong defense in front of them to really see, is it the defense or is it the goaltending? Right now, it seems like it's the defense, so it's hard to see just what kind of goalies you actually have back there when you don't have a defense in front of them that they can work around. So they definitely need to build from the back out, I think. I think, like you said, they have enough offensive pieces not to make a ton of noise by any means, but I think they have bigger holes on the defense right now than they do the offense, and they need to get that fixed before they can kind of slowly start moving forward and get out of the basement that they're in.
So I'm pulling up the notes right now, mind you. Hang on one second. Here it is. They really only have 3 players under contract right now. So what they can do, and NLL is always different. You can get out of contracts really easy by just cutting the player. But they have Holden Cattoni, Adam Patra, and Justin Sykes under contract right now. The rest of them need new deals. And their list of UFAs is very long, but it's not super noticeable. You have David Brock, who's at the end of his career. Sheldon Burns, who comes over midseason as a street free agent. Casey Jackson, does he want to come back to Vegas, or is he looking to sign somewhere else on the West Coast? Tor Reinhold, he did not play this year. Jake Sanders seems like, I'm sorry, Jake Sanders is a RFA, I believe. Hang on one second. Jake Sanders. No, he's a UFA. I don't know why I'm thinking he's UFA. Because he was on the Practice squad, I apologize. Max Wayne and Tyler Carpenter round out the UFAs. The RFAs aren't super important because their rights remain with the team unless they get an offer sheet. But you're kind of looking at this, and how we did it last year is who could be of interest for the Buffalo Bandits. I mean, we cover the Buffalo Bandits. We need to tie in the Buffalo Bandits here. To me, there's two names that really stand out. It's Brandon Goodwin, who's going to become a UFA. I mean, his services, depending on what the back end looks like this offseason. Again, a lot of it's up in the air because of the CBA. Buffalo is in the contract situation they're in right now, but not super worried about it. But Brandon Goodwin, Goodwin. I keep saying Godwin because I have Godwin on my fantasy team. Goodwin, transition player, 33 years old, but I thought he played very well this season. I mean, 21 points, 9 of them were goals, 76 loose balls, 22 caused turnovers, 12 block shots. As a transition player, 12 block shots is pretty stinking good. The other name, and this is another offseason, all dependent on Matt Vince, but I would like to see a Landon Kells. I feel like he's more of a backup type of player than a starting type of goaltender, but he's never had a good defense in front of him. What would he look like with a good defense in front of him? Is there that spark? So if Matt Vince does not return, maybe toss some feelers out to Landon Kells, see what you can bring in, and have him compete with Steve Orleman in net and see, okay, who's going to win that goalie battle. So there, as we move forward with these league report cards, there's going to be a lot of names that kind of just pop out like head scratchers, but a lot of... After you win 3 in a row, if you don't run it back, what does the team end up looking like?
Yeah, I think everything, obviously, as we've already discussed, hinges on Vince and his return or not return, and then who else goes with him. But Goodwin is a player, to me, that is very similar to the Vince situation where, yes, 33 is not that old, and I do like everything he brings, but if Vince comes back, he's the one you'd absolutely, the style of player you want to target for this team to get another solid transition player who has the cause turnovers, can bring that veteran depth kind of defensive player there. But if Vince does leave, do you want to add that age to the team, or do you want to shift that to more of a, getting Ron John more involved with the team, getting him more looks, and just getting some of the younger players more opportunity, because you aren't, obviously you're running it back. They're always going to try to win. They have the team to win whether Vince is there or not, but Vince is a massive, massive piece. So without him, I think you might see that shift to get a little bit younger. But if he does come back, I think Goodwin would be a big addition for this team. And then same thing with Kells, whether Vince comes back or not, hinges a lot on that. I do love the idea, if Vince doesn't come back, of bringing someone in to have competition for Orleman. Like you said a while ago, we've seen Orleman play okay in front of this defense when he had that one singular start and he looked okay. But any competition you can bring, goalie is, to me, by far the most important player on the team. So if you can bring in competition and maybe one beats the other one out, maybe halfway through the season, one isn't working, you try to switch to the other. Whatever it is, the more depth at goalie and the more competition you have at goalie, I am all for that.
So we gave them a grade of D. I think that's very fitting. I think they had some good moments this season, and they have some good building pieces they can build around. But we're going into year 4. It's the same coaching staff and same front office going into year 4. If they do not hit it right, and if they are the ones that get it brought back this year, there's going to be a lot of questions asked if they have another 3-13 or 5-13 season, or even a 6-12 season. They need to be in competition for a playoff spot, to me. Otherwise, I think you got to make some major changes. I would have made them already, but I'm just sitting here behind a microphone. So we'll move on to the Toronto Rock. This was one of my biggest misses of the season, and I think a lot of people felt that way as well. They finished 13th, 6-12. They had that one spurt of hotness where everybody's like, oh man, they might be able to get back into it, and they never did. 189 goals for, which was also tied with Vegas for 12th, and 208 goals against. That's an 11.56 goals against average, which was shockingly 4th in the league. I couldn't believe that. I had to double check all my math that that was 4th in the league, but it was for sure 4th in the league. Their season coming up, I think what Jamie Dawick did was perfect, and you don't see that typically in the NLL. I'm not talking about what he did prior to the season starting, because he said, hey, if we start 0-5, I wouldn't be completely shocked. Well, why don't you add pieces that were healthy to the lineup and you wouldn't have to worry about that? But what he did midseason to kind of tear it all down, trade out players that could not be franchised by other teams, so they're free to come back to Toronto and sign if need be. They own Las Vegas's first overall pick. Shocking, from the Rob Hellier deal in 2022. They own Philly's first round pick, which ended up being third overall from the Mitch Desnew and Chris Corbeil trade. They own their own first round pick, which is second overall. So if you haven't heard it yet, they own 1, 2, and 3 to start the draft. They also own their own second round pick. So this quote unquote rebuild that they're going to go through, if they nail this draft or even move some of these picks for players, this rebuild could be one of the fastest rebuilds we've ever seen in any type of sport.
Yeah, talking about the season they had versus the season they might have, the biggest thing to me, which was annoying, was exactly what you already mentioned, that they didn't really seem to go for it this year at all.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but to kind of try to put your players in that situation is tough. I don't know if there were talks behind closed doors of, hey, we're going to tear it down this season, and it is what it is, because like you said, they were very injured to start the season except game 1, and they did nothing to support that team.
5 goals against Ottawa. Don't give me that your offense was hurt. Your whole offense was there, and you scored 5 goals versus Ottawa. So I don't want to hear anything about your offense being injured, because they were fully there game 1, and you scored 5.
Yeah, PK loves bringing that up.
It's just, I hate that people are defending it, saying that you're so injured all season when your whole offense was not injured in game 1. Nobody got hurt in game 1, and you scored 5 goals. That's my main criticism and anger where it comes from.
And then after they got injured, they did nothing to make any moves to prove that they wanted to go for it this year, which is fine. But as far as judging them this year, they definitely were the team that tore it all down. They were the Albany of prior years, what you'd like to see from Vegas, but Vegas doesn't have the pieces to do what Toronto did. And they did it, like you said, in pretty much expert fashion, getting all these UFAs, trading them all for first-round picks and extremely high picks, and going out of their way to lose players that they have a good shot of getting right back with all these draft picks. They did it extremely well in what you see in other sports all the time, but like you mentioned, you don't see in the NLL very often. So for this specific season, I didn't love what they did because it was annoying, but for them to go out there and tear it down the way they did was really, really good. They had some big games or seasons from this team. Josh Dowick, who we know all about, had a monster season, a humongous breakout season, 42 goals, 75 points. He looks like he's going to be a threat for years to come. Bushi had his best season at 72 points. And I know they lost some defenders, but Cameron had a good season. Martin had a good season. So they had, even the players that were still around, they definitely stepped up in other players' absence. So to have these players, they have building blocks on the team already. They'll probably get all these building blocks back, plus Sam English, plus all these draft picks. Like you said, it might be the fastest rebuild in NLL history. Other than, I don't know, Albany's was also lightning fast, so that's going to be really, really hard to top, even though they took a step back. But still, we'll get to them eventually.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Sam English, because they didn't even have their second overall pick from last year, and he's going to be added to this equation as well. Yeah. So they could be very good if all these players hit and they hit all the draft picks or whatever else they do. They could be a very good team for years to come. You're kind of looking at the forwards right now, and let me pull up my notes once again because I'm not prepared as always. I'm in off-season mode. They have for forward group, they have Mark Matthews under contract for 1 more year. Zach Kearney, who's a forward slash transition type of player. They were playing him mostly at the back end. And then other than that, Nathan Grennan's an RFA. Brian Cameron will come back because his rights are there. Josh Dowick and Chris Bushi, already mentioned him for RFAs. But you got Corey Small, who's a UFA. You cannot franchise tag him. Tom Schreiber, UFA, can't franchise him. Dan Craig, do you want to bring him back after he just had one of his worst seasons by far? He's a UFA. So this offense could look completely different. I believe they're going to bring back Tom Schreiber. Corey Small will be very interesting because I think he's also struggled. He's on the downturn of his career. But I think for the for the righties, Josh Dowick, Chris Bushi, and Mark Matthews, if you have that rolling, Mark Matthews is left. Tom Schreiber, Chris Bushi, Bushi, and Josh Dowick. That's a very dangerous right-hand side when you want to add in Chandler Rogers, who can play a few shifts up there as well. That's a very dangerous right-hand side. The lefties, that's something to build around. Besides Mark Matthews, who else is going to be on that side? I like Brian Cameron for Spurs, but I think he's more a depth player. Dan Craig and Corey Small, that's what we've been saying all year long. The lefties needed to step up, and they didn't really step up. I know there was at times where Corey Small was stepping up in that little bit of a spurt that they had, but other than that, the lefties really just didn't really step up. And then you didn't see the typical back end that you're used to because Mitch DeSnu gets traded out. You had Brad Kreese sparingly missed 4 games because of work obligations, but he was still great when he was there. T.D. Erlin missed the start of the season. He missed 8 games. But I expect this team, they're going to be back in the hunt. Are you going to be able to bring back a Mitch DeSnu? Is Brad Cree, who's a UFA, going to want to come back here? You still have Latrell Harris for 2 more years, Justin Martin for another year, Chandler Rogers has got 2 more years. So they have some guys locked up. It'll be very interesting to see if the guys they pushed out do return. And that turns your eye to the goalie department. Troy Holochuk. I thought he looked good in spurts in that net when Nick Rose got traded, but does Nick Rose want to come back to Toronto? Or, say Matt Vince leaves. Does Nick Rose want to come to Buffalo? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's another name out there. He's the biggest goalie name out there if you exclude Christian Del Bianco, who's not leaving Vancouver. It's already set out there. I'm not even going to mention his name because he's not going to be up there. But he's the biggest goalie name out there right now. So it's this coming season is going to be really dependent on the players that they moved out. Do they want to come back for another run in this really quick rebuild that they're under?
Yeah, to me, it's going to come down, like you said, like the veterans like DeSnu. Like, those are the names that are interesting to me. Like, do they think, like, what matters most to them, I guess? Is it just simply playing on a potentially good team, or is it truly winning a championship? For a player like DeSnu, who's getting up there in age, he's still an elite player, but can this team, I know you have high hopes for Toronto next year if they put it all together properly, but are they ready to make that next step to push for a true title? And if they can't, does DeSnu want to go somewhere like Buffalo where he's played before, who, if Vince comes back, is ready to go for another title run? Does he want to just hop on that train and say, hey, let's go get a title, let's do this? Or does he want to possibly wait out another rebuild from Toronto? Like you said, it could be an extremely fast rebuild, but that rebuild still could take 2 to 3 years to truly win a final. Like, you might have a solid season next year, but still need to keep building and building until you're really in the finals and really trying to make that push. And at that point, is DeSnu still at the top of his game? So for players like that, I think it'll be very interesting. Rose, I don't think he goes anywhere else, but he could. It is very possible. I think he'll be right back in Toronto, but it is possible he goes elsewhere. But I think with the names you listed and the draft picks they have coming in, right now they have a very, very solid mix of veteran and youth, and they're in a position that if Rose does indeed come back, if DeSnu does come back, they're in a good shot to, I don't know if they're ready to push for a title, but in general, there will be a team that will be in the hunt for years and years to come with a solid mix of what they have.
So before we wrap up the Toronto Rock, let's go over our second and final sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is still at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps offering a wide variety of ciders, sours, seltzers, beers, and malt beverages.
So, once again, grab your calendars. Wednesday is the weekly Geeks Who Drink Trivia at 7:30. You can just fill that out for the rest of the time. It's always Wednesday. Thank you Thursdays, 6 to 10. Teachers, first responders, and military get a discount. Fill that in all your Thursdays. It will also be Speed Jigsaw Puzzle event at 7 p.m. You need a ticket. Get a ticket before you show up. Otherwise, you can't play. I think you can buy tickets at the door, but get it ahead of time. Be a little prepared. Friday is happy hour from 3 to 7. The whole beer wall is discounted. Again, fill in the gap here. But we're going to start plugging this one early. There will be a reel about this one shortly. But Sunday, July 6th from 4 to 7, 716 Pause is joining forces with Tap That Tap Room with an adoption event. You must be pre-approved to be able to adopt any of these furry friends. Apply at 716pause.org/adopt. Become meet your new best friend. Now, this statement is personally for me. Do not buy from breeders. They are horrible human beings. If you are a breeder out there, you are a horrible human being. Get an animal from a rescue because you're actually saving 2 lives. You adopt one, and then doing that, it frees up a spot for another animal that you can save from a bad situation. Adopting 1 saves 2. There's nothing better. Rescues, I work with a rescue. Everybody's overwhelmed. It's ridiculous right now. There's 0 space. People are using makeshift homes in rescues for storing these dogs. It's just not fair. Events and collaborations like these are absolutely amazing. So even if you're not in the market for a dog, even if you're like Phil, who's a cat person, come on down, drink some drinks, enjoy the nice weather, and hang out with some amazing dogs. I absolutely love that our sponsor, who we partner with multiple times, our longest sponsor, I hope they're not going away anytime soon, but Tap That Tap Room is partnering with a rescue. It hits home for me. Absolutely love it. So head down there. Again, even if you're not interested or not even ready for a dog, go down there, drink some drinks, enjoy the nice patio, and hang out with some dogs. There's no other better thing. That, again, July 6th from 4 to 7. Let's get some dogs adopted and drinks flowing. For anything else, head to their Facebook and Instagram page, and to find out what's on tap and what's on deck, check out tapthattaproom.com. We were talking about Toronto. Dan Craig's a UFA. Tom Schreiber's a UFA. Billy Hostrauser, Brett Cree, Corey Small. As you can see, there's a lot of UFAs. Again, not going to go over the RFAs. It will be, we already talked about it, will be interesting to see if all those former RFA or UFAs come back to Toronto. We'll talk about that in a later show. We gave them a D+, but as far as Buffalo is concerned, and that D+ can instantly be upgraded if you do a great draft, because I think the start of their season, I thought they handled it very poorly. I thought they could have made a playoff spot if they would have done more work leading up to it, but they kind of said, we're going to run it back. Another name to watch for is Matt Sawyer. Is he going to be back behind the bench? Are they willing to go through another run of this? Are you willing to give young players to a guy who has failed to reach expectations and where they're supposed to be? But for Buffalo, I'm not going to mention, bring in Dan Craig for the lefties or Tom Schreiber because you don't really need him for the righties. Again, this comes down to, and you're going to hear us say it all offseason long, it's dependent on what Buffalo ends up doing. But a guy like Brad Cree, he's not going to go to a West Coast team because his work obligations are up in Canada. But Buffalo is a close drive to Canada. So I'm not saying that they're going to go out and get him. I fully expect him to go back to Toronto, but it wouldn't hurt to pick up the phone call and give Brad Cree a call because he's one of the best defenders out there. A second name that I'm mentioning right here, because I don't know why they didn't put a protected practice player tag on him, but Jake Darlison. He was the 13th overall pick in last year's draft. He's a UFA because he was on their practice squad. Again, I don't expect him to leave Toronto, but he's another UFA. 2 UFAs out there that could be massive additions to Buffalo if Buffalo finagles and rips them away from Jamie.
Yeah, that's another thing with players even on Buffalo, which I know we'll get to in a long, long time, but a player like Kyle Matisse, no idea what his future holds, if Buffalo wants him back, if he wants to go elsewhere due to the trade, but he is a solid transition player. A player like Jake Darlison, again, that's the difference of, do you want to run it back with the veteran Kyle Matisse, who's established, can do what he does, and is a very, very good player, or do you want to switch to a youth player like Jake Darlison, give him a shot to build with this team for a long, long time and be that younger version of a Kyle Matisse? Not saying directly, but just the idea of the veteran presence or the youth. It'll be very interesting to see kind of how that plays out. I would absolutely love Brad Cree on this defense. He's amazing. I don't know where the room would come from, but make it, figure it out, get him on the team. That'd be great. Give me Cree, DeSnu, Vince. We're good.
Yeah, again, a lot of this is coming down to, what does Toronto want to do? What does Buffalo want to do? Buffalo's got a lot of young players as well. You got Trent Robertson, Cam Wires, Dylan Robinson, Zach Belter. So there's a lot of young players on the back end. So bringing in a Jake Darlison, it would be more competition. Okay, Jake Darlison or Taylor Dooley. Jake Darlison was drafted before a Taylor Dooley. Can they come out and compete? So with Panther City folding last year, this is another thing that I don't think we hammered home enough, is that there's so much talent going to be on the street free agents right now because you lost 21 spots plus 4 practice squad spots, plus all the IRs and all the other fun lists that the NLL has. But it's bringing in competition to camp never hurts. We would have never expected. I didn't expect Trent Robertson to make this team. He made this team. I didn't expect last year Alex Q to make the practice squad. He made the practice squad. Shocking things can happen even with the Buffalo Bandits. So bringing in competition never hurts. Just because they sign a deal doesn't mean they're making the team. It just means they're coming to camp. So bringing in a guy like Jake Darlison, I like that. Bringing in a guy like Brad Crete, he's here to stay and be an integral piece. But can you pull him away from Toronto? I think that's one of the benefits of talking about Toronto here, is because a lot of the players that are playing in Toronto work in the area, but Buffalo is so close. And a guy that we're going to be talking about in a little bit here, it's so close that even with work obligations, it's not that big of a deal that it's Buffalo versus Toronto. But we'll move on. Philly, one of the hottest teams to start the season, making me and Phil look like fools. And then they ripped off their Scooby-Doo mask and were exactly who we thought they were. 7-11. They had that 8-game losing streak to just destroy their season. Finished 12th. 207 goals for, which was 8th in the league at 11.5, and then 13th, that is almost dead last. Thank you, Vegas. 231 goals against, 12.83. Toronto owns their first-round pick from the Desnu Corbeil trade. They do own the 15th overall pick as a compensatory pick, but Buffalo owns their second-round pick from the 2024 dispersal draft, so they do have some pieces. They're just later in the draft. Their draft list also contains some players that were deeper in the drafts. They own Shane Knobloch. I should say own. They have his rights. He was the 45th overall pick, and then a bunch of lower picks as well. But this is a team that a lot of people for the last 2 years were very hot on. You and I excluded. We were not high on them either season. We did think they got better, but we're not ready to make the playoffs. Once again, we were right, so let's pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, we can do that right now by talking about the team. They are very, very, very top-heavy. Their offense is legit. They're very solid. They have plenty of pieces on the offense that are likely still going to be good for at least a little bit of time. It's a little bit of an older offense for sure. I know O'Neill, excluded, but for the most part, it is an older offense. It's ready to win now, but they did a really good job on offense. I know the goals for being 8th isn't amazing, but for the most part, their offense wasn't the problem to me. Their defense is a big issue, even with bringing in Desnu. While he was great for them and somehow finished second on the team and caused turnovers in his limited time there, shows the exact issue with his team. I know Desnu is incredible and can make an immediate impact, but he shouldn't be second on the team and cause turnovers in just 7 games. I know they had some injuries with Dominique only playing 7 games as well, but at the same time, their defense is just a big liability to me right now. And as much as I want to, kind of criticize the goalies, I like both of them for the most part. I do like Damoud still quite a bit. I think that neither of them have been given a great chance to succeed with the defense in front of them. I still think Damoud has a real good shot to be a starting goalie in the NLL for somebody. Maybe Buffalo, we'll see. But to me, it's the defense is their weak point right now. I think their offense, if their defense kept them in games a little bit closer, could have made some bigger noise. But to me, the defense is the problem with this team and why they finished 7-11.
Yeah, their offense was rolling, and then they made the trade for sending Holden Cotoni out and bringing in I know that was a separate deal, but that was part of the deal, bringing in Mitch Desnu to try to fix their back end, and in doing so, hurt their front end. And you got a stud in Brennan O'Neill. I think he's still learning the box game, and I think the sky's the limit for him. You got Joe Rezateris, but he's a UFA. Does he want to come back here? Mitch Jones, same thing. Both of them cannot be franchised. Blaze Reardon is the only other one that's really locked up for the forward group, so it would be very interesting to see, does Mitch Jones and Joe Rezateris want to come back? Because if they don't, this offense is in trouble. Like it's big time trouble. They're going to have to go shopping on the free agent market or try to work some type of deal in the draft to bring in some higher piece name. But their whole season came crumbling down when Scott Dominy got hurt. They were hot, and then he missed the rest of the season with I think it was his knee or his ankle, whatever it was. But your whole season shouldn't crumble by losing one defender. That's my main issue is here. It was what is it? Not the game of Jenga, but if one piece is moved and then the whole tower collapses, that's not a good built back end. And yes, you have some good pieces back there. I like Alex Pace. I like Liam Patton. I mean, I like Tony Malcolm back there. Shane Simpson comes over as well at the trade deadline. They tried to restock and fix what was wrong, so I will give them full credit. I thought Paul Day did a good job in trying to fix what was broken. But it just wasn't enough. And you can kind of see the writing on the wall. If you read any of my power rankings, you can see how bad I felt about Scott Dominy until they fell out of the top 8 and then he didn't rate it anymore. But, I mean, I can't really blame the goaltenders. You already hit that nail on the head right back there. The defense in front of them was giving up far too many shots. I think at one point, Nick DeMood had faced no fewer than like 58 shots in the entire season. Like, you shouldn't have your goalie facing 58 shots. You saw this what happened with Zach Higgins last year. He goes to Ottawa and starts so hot. Yes, they faded a little bit down the stretch, but that's a different story. But you can't keep relying on your goaltender to bail you out over and over and over. And you're looking at his numbers, 12.74 goals against. Yeah, that's not great, but his save percentage was 78. That's telling a bigger story than what you're just seeing on paper. I think Nick DeMood, and you call him, I think it was last year where you said he could be goaltender of the year. I still think that's in him. He's only 26 years old. He's an RFA. We're going to be talking about him in a second. But I think there is a top 5 goaltender potential in there. There's a reason they took him third overall. I'm sorry, second overall. No, it was third overall. I apologize. Was it second? It was second overall, right? They took him second overall in the compensatory pick. I think they let Jonathan Donville fall to 3, and we had the discussion, should Vegas have taken... No, I'm sorry. They did take him 3. I figured it out in my brain. They took him third because I said Vegas should have probably taken Nick DeMood over Jonathan Donville when we talked to Jake Elliott. But I really think that this whole coming up season really comes down to, does Mitch Jones and Joe Rezateris come back? Because if they do not, I think this team has to go full rebuild, because there's no way they're going to be able to rebuild a full offense in one offseason.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, without those two, like I said, the offense is solid, but it's with those two. You can't take away...
Yes.
I mean, they're essentially the Philly equivalent of Dane and Josh. You can't take both of them away and still have an incredible offense. Would it be a decent offense? Sure. The Bandits would still have a decent offense, and Philly would still have an okay offense without those two. But yet, that's two monster holes to replace while your defense is already struggling, while your goaltending is already struggling. You can't lose the one thing that is working on your team and take that big of a step back. Like you said, if they do, and maybe that is just a decision they have to make this offseason, maybe they do want to, not necessarily want to lose those players, but maybe this is the time for them to tear it down to nothing and make this Brendan O'Neill's team of the future. Build it around him moving forward. Tear it all down, get a better defense, get a better offense for the future, and then rebuild from there using O'Neill as your kind of, pin to hold this whole team together in the meantime. But if not, you're looking at getting those two players back, and then they have a massive overhaul they need to do on the defense. I don't think Desnew comes back to Philly, so you're losing one of your best defenders, even though he was a trade deadline guy. He's still by far one of the best defenders for the entire season, stats-wise, on their team. Still insane in just 7 games, but he's also one of the best in the league, so there's a reason for that. But I think if you lose those two, I agree with you. I think you have to pretty much tear it down and start over.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see Mitch Desnew re-signing here, and you can't franchise tag him, so he's gonna go in free agency regardless. But I do. Again, I'll give Paul Day credit. I hate teams that just sit on their hands. Did it end up working? No. So you can kind of grade him based on that, but at least he did something. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't see Colorado do anything when they lost Zed Williams and Eli McLaughlin gets hurt, and then Connor Kelly, and we'll talk about them down the road. But you didn't see them do anything, and their season kind of crumbled, and they ended up missing the playoffs on that big losing streak. Paul Day tried to do something. He tried to right the shift. He tried to fix what was broken. It just didn't work. And you can give him a hard time if you want, but I love that he actually did something. Yeah. Again, It ended up costing him a third overall pick, yes, but you went and tried to acquire talent for the now, and I thought Mitch Jones played really well in Philly. Just didn't end up working. Their offense kind of struggled, but we gave them a C minus. I think that's a fair grade based on their hot start and then their crumble in the 8-game losing streak. But to look for the Buffalo Bandits aspect of this, I think the number one name is obviously Mitch Desnew. He played here. He got traded because of COVID. The border restrictions had to go. He's Dr. Desnew for a reason. That's the reason he went up in Toronto. And you already heard Steve Perillo say they were making a lot of hassle. Hey, can you try to get Mitch Desnew when we already knew Toronto wasn't going to trade Mitch Desnew to Buffalo? It made no sense. Why would you ever do that if you're Toronto? And there's a reason why Toronto and Buffalo very rarely ever trade, and that's why we always say they're not getting one of these top 3 picks. Stop talking about it. But I could see as a street free agent, maybe Mitch Desnew wants to come back to Buffalo. Now that he has his degree, again, it's a shorter drive. The restrictions at the border are not anywhere near what they were during COVID. So I think that travel would be a bit easier for him. Another name, Shane Simpson. Again, it comes down to what the back end looks like. I loved him in Calgary. He was, on the other end of so many Christian Del Bianco's assists in that game. Did he come to Philly and struggle a bit? Yeah. Was he in Vegas and struggle a little bit? Yeah, I get that. But I still think there's a very good transition player. And if you're going to play Ian McKay out the front door, this could be the goaltending or the transition type of player that could get you a few extra goals that you might be needing if Matt Vince is not there next season. Last one, and I know this might sound crazy because they just drafted him 3rd overall in the dispersal draft, but if there's any way Nick Damude is available and Matt Vince does retire, Nick Damude is the first phone call I'm making. He is going to be the name that apparently it's just Philly goaltenders. Last year it was Zach Higgins. This year it's going to be Nick Damude. I know he's an RFA. I know the rights are with Philly, and I know you can sign him to an offer sheet. I get that, but I think if there's any way, because they do have the young goaltender Deacon Knott behind him. Deacon Knott ended up getting a few starts down the stretch there, and I thought he played pretty well. It'll be very interesting to see, okay, is Deacon Knott available? He's only 22 years old. Or is Nick Damude? Or do they want to run that tandem back? So if there's any way, if Matt Vince does decide to hang it up after his second three-peat, that Nick Damude can be freed from Philly and come play in front of that good defense. Regardless who's there, it's going to be a good defense with all the young pieces as well. With Steve Dietrich, with Anthony Cosmo. I think that's built up for success for years to come. And he's not just a goaltender that's, a plug and fill until you find somebody. He can be your goaltender of the future. Again, not talking down to Steve Orleman whatsoever. But if you bring him in and he beats out Steve Orleman, I really think he's a top 5 goaltender in the making if he gets some good defense in front of him. Again, I'm not saying that he needs a top 5 goaltender, but 58 shots, man. Every game, like any goaltender is going to fail in that system eventually. He's going to get worn out in net, but he still had a 78 save percentage in net. That says something to me.
Yeah, Damude would be, if Vince leaves, he's by far the number 1 goalie, I think, that you and I think.
What? You don't want Christian Del Bianco? What the heck? Yell at him. Get him.
Sorry.
Dylan Ward, go get him. Jameson. We're typical Buffalo fans, right? Just go get the next best player.
Yeah, Shiliano, goaltender of the year for the Rush.
Regularity? Go get him.
Oh, absolutely. San Diego, that's close to Buffalo. But yeah, Damude, I think, like you said, I think he could be available. I don't know if he will be available, but for a team that has more holes than just goaltender, and like you said, Knott did play decent down the stretch. So if they can get a first-round pick or even their high second-round pick back for Damude to build their team, in more than one way, while also if they think Deacon Knott is a potential goalie of their future, and maybe they are having a small-ish falling out with Damude. I mean, he didn't really possibly live up to their standards. I would hope/assume they can see that he is better than what he showed this year, but I think by far he would be the one, to me, that would be the goalie to go after with everything you got, and if you can get him, yes, he's not going to. No one can ever replace Matt Vince, but I think he would give the Bandits the best shot of a replacement from the very slim options I think you and I see that are out there. Mitch Desnew would be just, I don't know. If the Bandits were able to somehow get Desnew on this defense that is already beyond incredible to add one of the best, if not the best defender currently in the NLL to that back end. Good luck to all other teams. Like, if they pick up this new and Vince were to return, I don't like, what are you supposed to do as the rest of the NLL? Like, I don't know what you would do with that team. Shane Simpson also, like you said, I do love his transition ability. Maybe this is the time to go get him while he is a little bit down. If the Bandits want to roll back a transition player that they think they need, like you said, when he was with Del Bianco, he was really solid. So maybe this is the time to get a transition player like that. He's still a very good defender and can bring a little bit of that transition offense that the Bandits still seem to lack, especially with McKay possibly being the new full-time lefty forward.
Yeah, again, we're going to give out some, not big names, but bigger names, because we're just not sure what Buffalo is going to look like. And yes, if they all come back, it's just going to be smaller moves like we've seen in prior years, like the Thomas Whitty, Brandon Robinson type of deal. It's going to be it's going to be the 16, 17, 18 guy on the list. And when we kind of assumed Matt Vince was going to be coming back last year, that's kind of the road we ended up going down. But with so much in the air between the CBA and the older players, and they completed the three-peat, are they going to want to go back for a four-peat? All that kind of stuff up in the air. We're kind of trying to play both ends. That's why we had a Jake Darlison. That's why we had a Landon Kells. And that's why we mixed in a Mitch DeSnew here as well. So some of these ones are bigger fishes. Some of these ones are just little tadpoles. So we're going to keep fishing and finding out what hooks to our pole and reel it in and see what we got. A little fishing reference there. But that will conclude the first three,
Did
not
you
top
give them
three.
A grade?
I gave them a C-, yes. C- for their start. Yeah, for their start, and then they went for it. I do think this whole front office and coaching staff will be back. I think Ian Rubel did some nice things. Tracy Koleski's on the bench as well. I do like that dynamic. It just will be interesting to see. It's like the Sabres. It was that 8-game losing streak. Otherwise, you're probably in the playoffs. But that will wrap up the first three of our report cards. We'll be back for the next three next week. But Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this episode? Because you made it through. No buffering. We made it through. Is there anything else with this episode before we shut it down and see you all next week?
No, we are all good. And thank you to my internet for holding strong.
You're the real MVP in this one. But again, we will be back next week for another episode every Wednesday through the offseason. We'll be breaking down the next three teams for report cards, and maybe we'll get some Sabres news. July 1st coming up, draft coming up. Who knows? Who cares? I don't. Bills training camp. Congratulations, Josh Allen getting married. I think that was 2 weekends ago, but who cares? Yeah, I think that's about it. That was our first Bill shout-out in quite a while. But we'll wrap this one up, so thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective, as my screen's going absolutely bananas. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Phrase Flowers for sponsoring this episode and this podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our store on our Linktree and our socials, or the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. As I'm reading this, I remember I didn't do the intro. So there you go. Follow us there. Until next time, bye-bye.